a lot of our research actually shows that having an emergency fund is not just helpful in your current financial stress and the way you feel now, but it actually helps you feel less stressed in the future too. So it's an investment in your future self.
Welcome, Elena. Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Milena. I am a researcher on our behavioral economics team, and I study how people make financial decisions and how we can help them make better ones.
My sources tell me you also have a PhD, which is super helpful in answering all of our questions today. Is that true?
Yes, I have a PhD in behavioral decision making.
You will be the perfect person to talk all about how saving is an investment in yourself with us today. So thanks for being here.
Of course.
Maybe we start off just kind of high level. What are the long-term benefits to keeping your money in savings?
There's really two main benefits. One is more emotional and the other one is more financial. So the first benefit really is about peace of mind and feeling that you have a buffer in case anything goes wrong, that you can draw down on that emergency savings if you have a really big unexpected expense. And having that peace of mind really lowers your financial stress. It allows you to worry less about your finances on a day-to-day basis. And so it's really about providing that relaxed emotional peace of mind. On the other hand, it's also a really great financial decision to have money in savings because it allows you to avoid, for example, taking on really high interest credit card debt that can really hurt you down the line, or having to withdraw money from a retirement account that may also come with penalties or taxes.
Interesting to hear that kind of two different approaches to thinking about it and the two categories that you laid out there. We think so much about like, oh, well, financially, I need help if something happens or something goes wrong, right? And so that long-term benefit of having those savings there, but also that aspect of like just being to be able to be more relaxed and more at ease.
Yeah.
If you have that savings, helps
Absolutely.
you operate day to day even better. I think about even being at work, right? And I have so much to do at work, but if I get my to-do list checked off, I go home and have a way better evening knowing that I got everything I need to get done versus pushing it off until tomorrow.
And it's funny that you say that actually, because our research actually showed that not only does it help you think and worry less about your finances overall, but that actually it increases your productivity at work, because at work you're not distracted by all these financial worries.
What about, and we talked a little bit on this, but an unexpected expense? So something comes kind of out of the blue that you have to pay for, and more than you would hope, right? A pretty expensive expense. How does that affect your financial well-being?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So I think a lot of people without emergency savings, their first instinct would be to go to a credit card, and that's a very natural instinct. The thing is, if you don't pay off a credit card by the end of the month, you're usually hit with really high interest rates and fees. And so you're having to pay a lot more on top of just the initial amount that you borrowed, having to pay that back. And a lot of times it's really hard to break out of that cycle. It's hard to get back to square one. And so it's really a long-term harm sometimes, where like it's really hurting people and their financial well-being.
Can you provide like a concrete example of an unexpected expense, when that would maybe happen and what that could play out and look like when it comes to financial well-being?
Absolutely. So we like to talk about a lot of different kinds, but one that I think is really common and a lot of people face is unexpected medical bills. That's something that you don't plan for. It's something that most people hope you don't have to deal with, right? Like nobody wants to have a medical issue. But if you don't have a way to pay that off, and you say put it on your credit card, or you have to borrow money in some way, right? You're not only dealing with having medical issues where you're feeling unwell, like physically, but you're also then causing financial harm, where you're having to pay off that interest, go into debt, take out money from retirement accounts that you may have to pay penalties on. And so it's really causing a larger problem down the line.
You think about, too, if you have an unexpected medical emergency, you might be in physical pain. You don't want to be in physical pain and mental or emotional pain as well, thinking through how am I going to be able to handle this? You kind of want to just deal with what's happening with you to make sure that you start to feel better.
Absolutely. And you also probably can't put it off.
Yeah.
There are certain unexpected expenses that you can say, like, I can wait on that. But a lot of times with like a medical issue, you can't. Like you have to have a surgery, or you break a an arm and then you have to get a cast. Like those aren't things that you can say, oh, well, I'll deal with that later. It's kind of an immediate expense that you have to take on. Similarly, like if your car breaks down and you can't get to work, you can't really put that off because once you can't get to work, then you can't earn the money that you need to pay for the expense. So it's kind of a vicious cycle there. And so that's another one where it's like you kind of have to deal with it right away. And so if you don't have the money immediately, you have to find a way to get the money immediately.
You mentioned something that's very interesting, pulling money out of your retirement account if you have nowhere else to turn. Can you talk about the impact that might have on your retirement fund and why you would maybe not want to do that if you don't have to?
Yeah, there are multiple reasons. The first is that for retirement accounts, a lot of times what we're looking at is right there. This is 30, 40 years of compounding interest. And what we like to say is that time in the market beats timing the market. So what's really important for retirement accounts and for really most investments is that you just want to be in the market as long as possible. That's how you earn that compound interest and that's how you grow your money. And so if you have to pull it out of the market, you're interrupting that timeline and you're basically cutting off the amount of time that you would have given that investment to grow. But it's not just that, because it's also for 401ks or for traditional IRAs. So those are the most typical types of retirement accounts that people have. You also, if you're under 59 and a half years of age, you pay a 10% penalty on any withdrawal. And you also have to pay taxes on anything that you take out. And so you're having to pay a lot of money to actually access that retirement account money.
What about using credit cards to cover unexpected expenses? Like, would you ever use a credit card? Should you ever use one in this instance?
I mean, sometimes it's a last resort, right? I would say if you can avoid it, don't do it because credit cards charge really high interest rates. They're like 18, 20, 25%. Is really insane levels of interest. And then by doing that, then if you don't pay it off by the end of the month, you're having to pay that interest rate on top. And if you're only paying back minimum payments, which is sometimes what people can afford, it takes a really, really long time to pay all that back. So it's a long-term financial decision that can affect you for years to come.
Very eye-opening points between retirement and credit card and kind of that importance of that emergency savings fund in case something totally unexpected happens. Maybe we put all of this to the test in a game called the Financial Flash Quiz. I will throw out a couple of different scenarios and you can hold up 3 different flags. Red if it's an absolute no-no, yellow if it's a probably proceed with caution, and green if it's a thumbs up. You can do it.
Sure.
Okay. You take out a personal loan to pay off your credit card debt, but don't change your spending habits.
Red flag.
Why?
If you're not changing your spending habits, you're really not going to be able to pay off that personal loan. So really what you want to do is change your spending habits, then try to get the lower interest rate. And as you're paying it off, then hopefully you'll be able to improve your financial well-being after that.
You put an unexpected $500 car repair on your credit card because you don't have an emergency fund.
I mean, I would say that's yellow. I mean, if you don't have an emergency savings and it's a last resort, you do what you got to do. But I would say do your best to pay it off as quickly as possible by the end of the month, if possible, so that you don't incur any interest. And then just really work on building up that emergency savings for the future.
You use a credit card to pay for a flight, but pay it off in full the next month.
Green flag. As long as you're paying it off in full by the next month, by the time that your next bill is due, you won't have to pay any interest. So you can really use a credit card just to pay those current expenses. But you got to remember to get down to zero balance at the end of every month.
You have a high yield savings account for emergencies, but you dip into it for concert tickets.
Yellow flag. I mean, I wouldn't consider concert tickets an emergency expense. So, yeah.
What if your favorite artist is coming to your favorite city?
Well, hopefully you know in advance, and you can have a separate savings that you can save up for those tickets specifically.
You use your tax refund to pay down debt instead of putting it into savings.
That's great. I mean, it depends on the type of debt, but if we're talking credit card debt with really high interest rates, pay down that debt as quickly as possible. So take any extra money that you get, tax refunds or whatever, and try to pay it down. Yeah, that's great.
And the last one, you have a savings account, but it's linked to your checking, so you constantly pull from it.
Yellow. It's great to have a savings account, so that part is awesome. But if it's linked to your checking and you're constantly pulling it in, that's not really the purpose of the emergency savings. You really want to keep that separate, and you don't want to touch it unless you really have an emergency. That way, if you have that buffer and you can have that peace of mind. If you're constantly pulling from it and you're not replenishing it, then you're drawing down on that emergency savings. And when you have a real emergency, then you won't have the money there to be able to use it.
So, why is saving considered an investment in yourself?
Well, I think for several reasons. First, it's an investment in your own financial well-being, in your own emotional well-being, having that buffer, having that peace of mind, really feeling like if something happens, I can handle it, and really saving for the unknown. So that's one. But I also think it's an investment in your own other goals that you have, right? Because if you have an emergency fund, you don't have to pull from, say, your down payment fund or your car fund or your retirement savings, all of these other savings goals that you might have. If you don't have to pull from those because you have an emergency savings, then that really helps with those other goals too. But lastly, I would say also, a lot of our research actually shows that having an emergency fund is not just helpful in your current financial stress and the way you feel now, but it actually helps you feel less stressed in the future too. So it's an investment in your future self.
Yeah. And I think about it almost in like the way you describe it, these kind of two swim lanes, right? The swim lanes to your future savings and the future you. And if you don't have to pull from your long-term savings, you don't hit as many roadblocks in those swim lanes, right? You just keep going. And so it's just thinking through those ways to be smarter about short-term unexpected expenses and where you can pull them from.
Yeah. And I think it's great to think about those swim lanes, right? You have your down payment fund, you have your education fund, you have your retirement fund. I like to think of this one as your unknown fund, anything that you don't know that might come up and cause those roadblocks. And so if it has its own swim lane, then you don't have to worry about it affecting the other ones.
Any final tips for how anyone can start building their savings?
A few small things, I think. First is just start small, right? It seems like a lot of money. When we say $2,000 in emergency savings helps your financial well-being, a lot of people will say, $2,000, how can I do that? But, start with a little bit each month. You don't have to get to $2,000 right away. You take your time and you build it up as much as you can every month. So just really start small. Number two is that it's really helpful to automate your savings. So what I like to do, for example, is to send part of my paycheck to my savings account every month. So I don't even see that money and I can't be tempted to spend it or anything. And so it's automatically put into the savings account and you can decide how much you're comfortable with doing that. But say you send like $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can afford directly to the savings account. And if you're doing that automatically, then you won't be tempted to spend it, and you can budget accordingly. And then number three is if you can get to those $2,000 or that half a month's expenses, then really think about opening up your emergency savings to also include bigger issues that might pop up in your life, like an unexpected job loss. And for something like that, we recommend something more like 3 to 6 months of emergency savings, which seems insane. But if you can start to work towards a bigger goal like that, that's really helpful in the case that you lose your job, which is a much less likely thing to happen than like a car breaking down, but it does happen. And so it's good to be prepared for those. And then lastly, review and adjust. So if you are saving $100 a month and then you realize, hey, I can do more than that, adjust your budget. Or if one month you say, this month I have to pay a bill that I don't usually have to pay, say like a car insurance, that's like once every 6 months or something. And so I can't save as much this month. So just review and adjust and just keep your eye on that emergency savings.
I love that last point because you think about almost the seasonality of saving too, depending on your schedule. But if there is a season where you're going to go out to eat more, such as the summer, I like to go out with my friends, right? I know I'll be spending a little bit more than in the winter when I usually cook dinners at home. And so it's also like adjusting for your schedule and the seasonality of your spending habits.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very helpful insights. And it's been fantastic to have you here. Saving sometimes can seem a little bit intimidating, but with these kind of very simple, helpful tips and tricks, I think we can all be on a really nice path forward to saving. So thank you for all of your insights.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So happy that you were here with us.
Me too.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions or want to learn more about saving and other financial topics, be sure to check out our website and follow us on social media. Until next time, stay financially savvy.